In this video, I want to share two tips, two techniques that can be useful to you if you're trying to overcome or beat discouragement. Now, I think I tend to be a pretty motivated person in general. Of course, I will have times when I feel down. I will have times when I feel disappointed. But in general, I think I'm a pretty driven and a motivated person and sort of a self-starter, particularly if I'm doing something that I believe in, something that I value the outcome of, something that I think is useful and helpful to others, that usually helps me stay driven and motivated. But I find that there are times when I feel completely drained of energy, completely sucked of my motivation. And it's really difficult for me to push forward. It's really difficult for me to keep going with the same energy and with the same drive. And I think that pretty much everybody has those times. Everybody experiences those times when they feel down and they feel discouraged. They don't have any wind in their sails, and they don't have that motivation to just keep going. And so I've just found two things that I found really helpful to keep on going, to keep driving forward, and that have been helpful to me to achieve the things I need to get done. And so the first thing that I have found to be really helpful for me is just to manage my expectations. I find that when I get really discouraged, when I get really down, oftentimes it's because I had certain expectations, certain things that I felt would be met, certain expectations I had that people would come through for me in a certain way. Maybe it's people that I have helped before and I have assisted them in something before. And it's not as if I held that thing over their head and expected them to pay me back, but I just sort of felt that out of, human courtesy, when I needed help or when I needed assistance or when I needed an encouragement, they would be there for me to push me forward, to encourage me, to say, look, we can do this. Look, I will help you out. Look, let's keep going. And there are times when those people just don't come through. They're maybe not being as helpful as I expected. It could be a boss, it could be a workmate, it could be anyone. But I find that at times when I have these expectations of how I expect things will turn out, or how I expect people to come through for me or to be there for me and to encourage me, and when I don't get that, I find myself sliding down into discouragement and disappointment, and that just sucks me of my strength and the energy that I need to keep going. Don't expect too much of people. I tell myself things like human beings will be human beings. I tell myself to say, hey, maybe they're just having a bad day. I say, maybe God is trying to teach me something about depending on Him, or maybe about becoming a little bit more independent. I try to reframe what I am going through, and that helps me to manage my expectations. The next idea that I found very helpful and useful to me is just to leave room for God to work. I often have to mentally tell myself to say, look, you might be feeling discouraged because things have not gone the way you expected. But that doesn't mean that God is done working on this situation. There could be so many ways that God could fix this, or God could make this work out. In fact, I have seen Him work things out before. So I have to consciously remind myself to say, look, don't limit God. Don't put God in a box. Oftentimes when I'm becoming discouraged, it's because I have placed limits on what God can do. I've placed limits on how I think God should act in this particular scenario. And so when I embrace the kind of thinking to tell myself to say, look, leave room for God to work. Yes, you're feeling discouraged. Yes, things have not worked out the way that you wanted. Yes, things have not gone the way that you expected, but that doesn't mean that God is done working with this situation. He's still at work. So don't let discouragement creep in and drain you of the strength and the vitality and the motivation that you need to keep moving forward. And so those are the two things that I have found very helpful to me and that I felt might be helpful to you. Manage your expectations. Expect people to let you down sometimes, and leave room for God to work. Just because something hasn't gone the way that you expected it to go and the time frame that you expected it to go that particular way, that doesn't mean that God is through with you and the situation. God bless you. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.